This is Kosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast. And I think we're going to be diving into more climate change stuff, extreme climate. We were looking at the urban heat island, and we were looking at extreme storms, and we're going to continue forward with some of that. Meanwhile, Kyle and I are sitting here in our fully revamped studio. You guys can tell. We got a table.
It's a nice look.
Nice.
I see.
Yeah. Kyle and Laura completely tore everything out of here and redid it over the past week or so.
Yeah,
so it's amazing.
Impressive.
Very nice.
It is quite nice.
I didn't have to do anything.
Thank you. 10 by 10 by 10.
You supervised, didn't you?
I didn't.
No.
I wasn't. I was
Didn't
not
even
anywhere
supervise.
nearby. No.
Okay.
No.
So, Kyle, you just
Make
run
sure
your older
Russ
brother
stays
off
away.
when you need to get a job done.
Yeah, I told him.
When I need to get things done, yeah.
I told him, I was like, hey, call me when you're going to work on it. I never got a call. He just let me know, and he was like,
that's what happened.
he was like, I'm done.
I thought you were going to say, call me when you're ready to work on it so I can find something else to do for a while.
yeah, you're right. I didn't call. I just texted and said, I'm working on the studio.
Well, there it is. Yeah. It's a different setup. I'm kind of feeling a little disoriented here.
There's not much of a shelf for the beer in the background, though. I'm worried about that.
Well, we do have shelves.
Guitar.
We do have shelves off to the side here. You can't see them.
Oh, okay.
Trust me, bro. When you get here, there's plenty of room for
There's
beers.
plenty of room for beers.
You're all good, bro.
Yeah.
I'm coming. All right. Welcome to 2023, people.
Heck yeah.
Freaking
Okay.
New orbit.
It is 2023 now. You will
Correct.
confirm that? Okay.
Correct Monday.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
You haven't partied for New Year's yet, Randall?
Kronos has spoken.
No, in fact, I'm behind. I don't think I've got to still go back and party for 2012. I kind of somewhere in there. I've got like 8 years. No, 13 years of partying to catch up on.
Okay. I can help you out with that.
Is that when I left
Okay.
town? Wait a second. What happened?
Yeah, 2023. Jeez. I remember reading the novel, George Orwell's novel, 1984 in high
84.
school. And I'm thinking at the time, 1984, God, that's
Way in the
just,
future.
that's like, geological eras into the future,
It's gonna be so
That'll
old.
never be here. Jeez. Then what was the next one?
I was a sophomore in high school for that. That was like required reading, or I guess I think I went over to somebody's house and watched the movie at that point.
It was required reading. Well, now
Oh, yeah, I
don't
was
they
in high
ban
school
that
for
book
that.
in high schools
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's getting too
go
close
there.
to reality?
Yeah, it sounds like today.
Yeah, it did occur to me that like in 2 years we'll have been a quarter of the way through this century. It's just like it's crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I remember there was some fear, that the year 2000 was going to be the end of the world.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep. 2000 and then
2012.
2012.
Then
Yep.
2012.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Gonna,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's 2047 we have to look forward to.
2047. Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
We're not
Well,
going to make it.
Well, we got
The
what's
2100
what's
guys.
Apophis though? That's 2039 or 2029 or 2036, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, there's options for total destruction.
We
coming
got
our way.
options.
We have options for
Yep.
total destruction.
Whatever death you want to look forward to, somebody's going to offer it and sell it to you.
Okay, so in other words, we have, as far as the apocalypse goes, we have options.
We have
That's
options.
right, yes.
Okay.
But we're giving a
always good to have
positive
options.
outlook here. Yeah.
Oh.
This is how we're going to live through it all.
Yeah,
You just
that's
have to learn
that's-
how to make an awesome fossil face
That's right.
so that if you are preserved, when they dig
No.
you up, you're going to be the fossil they stick at the very beginning of the museum.
That's
You're
right.
yeah,
so
because
cool.
you want to be like this. You don't want to be like this. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, cool.
You
Okay.
just want to be like,
Totally. Cool.
Yeah.
Dio.
Yeah. Bring it on.
you're the first thing they see when they walk in the futuristic museum.
Okay. Just take it easy, Mike. Calm down now.
You're in
Oh.
2023 too, Mike. Welcome.
This is 2023, Mike. This is the end of your normalcy this year.
You can't sense the excitement just pouring off of me?
Well, I don't know. I'm looking. I see a little bit of looks like some ionization around your hairline there. Hey, that's what it was. The halos. Now I got it. I'd never realized that before. Okay, never
The
mind. I
halos
got
is-
off on a
okay,
tangent
all right.
there. A little bit there. Skull
Electric
ionization,
universe.
Skull.
plasma emissions.
So yeah, Randall, you've kind of continued to show graphs that break down the paradigm that's been put out to make people think that this is the most extreme period we've ever been in the whole life of the planet, and that is just not true. So where are we going tonight?
Oh my God. Got to rein it in here and get focused. Okay, Brad
Well,
is
I don't know. You want to have some more laughs?
no.
No.
We're done with the laughs for the
We're done
evening.
with laughing.
I will
No
say
more
while
laughs.
you're now that I got you focused and you can figure all that out. I Bimini, the island of Bimini, the ocean behind me. I went there to see if I could find the Bimini Road. Right, so we're doing tours, and it's off this coast somewhere. I wasn't quite able to get it to see it myself, but the guys I talked to said they were aware of the Ancient Apocalypse series with Graham Hancock now on Netflix, and a lot of people were talking about it. And I sent them specifically to it, the right episode, and they said, "Well, by the time you come back next year, we'll have a tour over there." So. We're going
Awesome.
to be able to see the Bimini Road, though I didn't quite get to it myself.
I
But
definitely want to
it's
go see it.
beautiful
Yeah.
ocean, regardless.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. It's an amazing place. Just east of Miami, off the Florida Peninsula.
This is definitely a place, Randall, where we can do science and drink beer at the same time.
Well,
Right.
and you guys
You can
had
catch up on your
uh,
partying.
You guys had a expedition with George Howard there to go off of Miami and find a potential impact site there, right? That got
That's
kind
right.
of derailed from COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in between Miami and the island of Bimini. So we may be able to package these.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We still want to get out there.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't made up my mind yet whether it's natural or artificial.
Yeah, that's why I want to see it.
But it's only what, 50, 60 feet down or 30 feet?
No,
it's
it's
like
20,
20
maybe.
20
20.
couple feet. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Very
So,
shallow.
so that would have potentially been above water. Let's see, at what point were sea level 20 feet lower? I have a graph I could probably pull up.
Well,
Can you
and
pull
you-
that microphone up?
You've shown images that you have of the erosion of the limestone shorelines there in the Bahamas, where sea level is 20 feet higher.
Higher.
So we visited a cave site, Nassau, that it seemed obvious that the ocean level was higher, and this cave system was the result of the crashing waves.
Mm-hmm. And how far above sea level was it? Modern sea level?
Oh, I don't know, 30 feet.
30 feet.
We were directly across the road from the beach. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, less than 50 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we should definitely devote a whole discussion to the issue of sea level, because there's some very interesting things out there that definitely
Used to
shows
see.
that sea level has been considerably higher than now.
Considerably.
Many times.
Yeah.
Right.
It's gone up as much as 20 and 30 feet and gone down as much as 400 to 450 feet.
Well, I'm right into some of the same areas we look in the Carolinas where the bays are. There's
Yeah.
also a coastline up there.
Yep, that's right. So yeah, I thought maybe we'd just talk for a minute first about the recent Rogan podcast with John Reeves. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I haven't even watched
Love
it
to.
yet.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I know it's super pertinent.
Oh yeah. Well, and it vindicates further Frank Hibben. Frank Hibben, we talked about Frank.
Right.
He was the
University of New
anthropologist,
Mexico.
University of New Mexico, who was pretty much one of the small handful of mid-century catastrophists. And his catastrophism was based upon following the gold miners in the frozen mucks of Alaska. And he saw himself what John Reeves was describing to Joe, and wrote about it and concluded that it had to have been a catastrophe. In fact, I actually have
Yeah, that was probably in the 30 or 40s episode. So I'll make sure that link to that episode, or there's probably multiple episodes. But yeah, there's one where you spent quite a bit of time reading directly from his accounts, from his book, from Frank C. Hibben's book.
Yeah. And
very, very poetic and poignant. Yeah.
Very much so. So yeah, and I have some pictures also showing. Now I don't know if this is exactly what Reeves is doing, but it's similar. I mean, because these pictures that I've got here, I can do a share screen here. See if I can do this now. All right.
I also have a quote of Hibben's quote from Charles Hapgood's book, Path of the Pole. It's a really good quote.
Oh, is it from the Lost Americans?
That's what they're doing right there at the boneyard. They're hydraulic mining.
Yeah, it is from the Lost Americans. Yeah,
that's what they're doing right there. That's high pressure. That. So
yeah, he has one that's automatic. They basically turn it on and they just leave, and I guess it runs for a couple hours and they just come back, turn it off, and
I would guess that it's the technology has gotten a little more sophisticated since the 1920s, but it's basically the same idea, using high pressure to blast away the muck, the frozen muck.
Yeah, what does he call the machine?
Let's see,
like the Giant or something like that. I don't remember what it's called.
Well, and then right here is the Hibben quotes. So since we've already done this, I don't think we'll get back into this. Other than this is a great quote. He raises the question here: the Pleistocene period ended in death. This was no ordinary extinction of a vague geological period which fizzled to an uncertain end. This death was catastrophic and all-inclusive. The large animals that had given the name to the period became extinct. Their death marked the end of an era. But how did they die? What caused the extinction of 40 million animals?
I think, 40 million is an understatement at this point, right?
Yeah. And 40 million is probably an understatement. And then this graph, I've been, let's see here. I, try to keep up with things changing. Let's see if I've got this graph handy here. Recently published by the World Data Center. I think it's called World Data Center. Yeah, okay, here it is. This is by ourworldindata.org. You can download the annual data based on estimates by the History Database of the Global Environment and the United Nations. So I am going to share this screen and we'll look at this graph here. This is a very interesting graph.
We love graphs.
We do. The size of the world population over the last 12,000 years. So here we are now at 7.9 billion in 2022, and we back up down here let's see, what was the, okay, so yeah, 190 million in the year 0. And then when you go back, you can see this is a declining logarithmic curve as you go back, and 4 million in 10,000 BC. So that's 12,000 years ago. So according to this graph and these demographers who put this together, I suppose a whole bunch of people collaborated to come up with this.
Wow.
But there we go, 4 million people in 10,000 BC. Now, thinking about the overkill hypothesis, you know, I mean, when you start thinking about it, this is now 4 million, that would be the aggregate population. So that's going to include children, it's going to include women, it's going to include old people. We can presume that if the population was, and you can see here, it's a pretty steady state. Look at there, 10,000, 8,000, so 6,000 BC, 4,000 BC. So, you know, here's 8,000 years has gone by and the population has barely changed, right? So how do you explain that? I mean, then obviously people are dying off at almost the same rate that they're being born, or, you know, so the question is how many people are being born during this period of time? And if we assume within the standard models of, you know, pre-industrial societies that, you know, infant mortality was up to, you know, like 50%, you know, that half the babies born, maybe even not even half, made it to adulthood. So you got to keep a lot of babies being born just to keep the population being stable. Thank you. And if that's the case, then a lot of babies are having to be born. A lot of babies are dying. Young people are dying. People are not making it to adulthood. And it means that basically women have to be wholly preoccupied with producing babies, right? If you've got to have 5 to 10 children to bring 4 or 5 children to adulthood, then the entire woman's productive life has to be pretty much devoted to having children. And then you get elderly. So I think we can safely assume that the hunting was mostly being done by men, and men between the ages of late teens and probably late 50s, maybe, right? So what does that actually leave for the people out hunting? What numbers, just if we're going to do some sort of semi-realistic speculation, I think maybe a third of this number, 4 million, 1.5 million people.
So what's the basis of the 4 million? I mean, how do they establish that?
Well, I mean, like I said, this is, you know, and we've gotten into this before, and I can't say with certainty what parameters they've used for this, but you know, this is,
I mean, is it
the result of, yeah, I mean, this is a result of a whole lot of people working on this for decades, basically.
I mean,
it says based on estimates by the History Database of Global Environment and the United Nations.
Right
So
there,
based on estimates.
Yeah.
So they're basically creating a mathematical calculation and do a reverse extrapolation. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not saying necessarily what statistical processes they use to derive these numbers, but these numbers, I mean, you can go back and, you know, the estimates of global population going back into prehistory have been around, you know, for most of the last 100 years, and they just keep refining and refining and refining, and new data comes in, and you know, it's interesting to me that this ends basically at 12,000 years ago. And I think we've already shown enough evidence to suggest that there was a population bottleneck at the Younger Dryas. So would that population bottleneck show up on this graph right here? And I mean, what it's saying here is that if we look, you know, 1 billion, so you can look right here, mid-14th century, the Black Death pandemic killed between 1/4 and half of all people in Europe. And that's reflected in this thing right here, right? This interruption in the upward trend. The average growth rate from 10,000 BCE before Common Era to 1700 was just 0.04% per year.
just a basically replacement rate.
That's exactly what I was saying. I mean, people are dying off at the same rate babies are being born, essentially, for all these thousands of years here.
Yep.
Which raises to me interesting questions. There's multiple interesting questions raised by this. Okay, so what I was getting back to was the idea of how many actual viable hunters were there who were hunting megafauna.
Right, but
Right.
I understand that, but you're assuming that these are hunter-gatherer populations, which
Well, I'm not assuming anything. I'm just showing what,
but this model then assumes that these were like probably hunter-gatherer populations.
Yes,
And
I think we could safely say that.
so you're talking about a very low population density, tribes of 100,
Yep.
150 people
Yep.
wandering around over the current landmass similar to the landmass we know it as today.
Right.
So, when you've got 4 million people, that's half the size of the city of Atlanta.
Yeah. Dispersed
Yeah.
about the entire globe.
Yeah. What's it say about your mass kill?
Well, that's my point. That's my point, Mike. You're saying what? That Frank Hibben just referred to the reference the number 40 million. Now that, of course, encompasses many species of megafauna, but I've read estimates of the number of mammoths alone in the world maybe was on the order at least equivalent to Africa at the turn of the century, which was maybe 8 to 10 million elephants. And that's considered like a conservative number. There may have been, so assuming like say 10 to 12 million mammoths worldwide. All right. And then within 1,000 or 1,500 years, they're completely extinguished. How plausible is it that they were exterminated entirely, 100% completely, so fast that they couldn't replicate themselves by small roving bands of Paleo-Indian hunters?
Right.
When the number of mammoths apparently outnumbered the number of hunters, probably by a factor of 4 or 5.
Right, and we've discussed this idea before. When it continues to fascinate me because, and I agree with your skepticism on this. Because what are they decide? Oh, it's lunchtime. Let's go kill a mammoth.
Well, yeah, there was actually I think I've referred to this before, a Russian study where a Russian paleontologist was trying to figure out how much meat that Paleo Indians were having to eat on a daily basis to eat all the mammoths to extinction. And then I did like a conversion, and I think it turned out to be something like eating 12 double quarter pounders with cheese every day. So it was something, and I'm thinking these guys, well, is there any evidence that these guys had like a rampant obesity?
Yeah, an obesity problem. That makes it harder to
They
hunt.
bulked up,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's harder to chase
6
mammoths.
to 10
if
pounds of mammoth meat every day.
it was something like that, yeah. And I thought, I don't know.
Probably not.
I'm a little skeptical here. So that's it. Just to me, if we assume this, and we assume that there wasn't a global industrial civilization at 10,000 BC, I'm having a hard time attributing the mass extinction of the megafauna to nomadic Paleo-Indian hunters who are living primarily through hunting and gathering. And I'm also skeptical about how much time they would have each year when they weren't hunting or gathering to build gigantic pyramids and move 10, 20, 40-ton blocks around. Anyhow.
That's a whole different
I
topic
agree with
right
that.
there.
That's a whole different topic, but it just to me, there's multiple places I think where we can question prevailing narratives about what was going on in prehistory.
Well, let me if we can finish this with, I'll read this other quote from Hibbins.
Yeah, okay,
This
great.
is also this also like throws, I mean, we've gone through some of this before, but he says throughout the Alaskan mucks, too, there is evidence of atmospheric disturbances of unparalleled violence.
Yeah.
Mammoth and bison alike were torn and twisted as though by a cosmic hand in godly rage. In one place, we can find the foreleg and shoulder of a mammoth with portions of the flesh and toenails and hair still clinging to the blackened bones. Close by is the neck and skull of a bison with the vertebrae clinging together with tendons and ligaments, and the chitinous covering of the horns intact. There is no mark of a knife or cutting instrument. The animals were simply torn apart and scattered over the landscape like things of straw and string, even though some of them weighed several tons. Mixed with the piles of bones are trees, also twisted and torn and piled in tangled groups, and the whole is covered with fine sifting muck and then frozen solid.
And that's
not hunting.
unless, yeah, no, that's not hunting unless they were really upset about something and throwing temper tantrums and
right, a tantrum like a tantrum in the forest. Throw the trees in there with them and everything, rip it all apart, and then make it freeze. Yeah,
And then bury it in 60 feet of mud.
yeah.
Instantly. I'm sorry, Randall. I do want to point this out before you make this disappear. That there's a consistent 12 years for the next billion. So 75 to 87, 87 to 99, 99 to 2011. So there's that is not accelerating on how fast the reproduction rate is. And then 11 to 2022 is not quite the extra billion, but it's not quite the 12 years either. So I just want to say that there is that consistency of pattern in the increase. It's not accelerating, whatever that means.
you're looking at the graph, the size of world population.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on the right side there, the 3 billion to 4 billion is 15 years, but then from there on, each extra billion is 12 years.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So now this is interesting though. Here is the rate of reproduction and being projected into the future. Look at this graph. The annual world population growth rate, 1950 to 2100. So you can see right here. Now look at this big drop right here. Look what it's attributing that to. The Great Leap Forward. Famine in China under Mao is killing around 30 million people. So that shows up right here. It is reducing global population growth between 1958 and 1961. And then it peaks up, and the like here, the world population growth rate peaked in 1962 and 1963 with 2.2%. That would be per year. And then look what it's done since then. Look at this. And then if you project this trend line right on down, this is pretty wild.
Right.
And it would suggest that the population bomb that was inspiring so much fear, the overpopulation, this is probably going to stabilize at 9 to 10 billion people.
Yeah, I think the previous graph said they estimate that, 11 billion was where it would be stable? Yeah, 11 billion in 2100.
Yeah. And even that,
they expect rapid population growth to end at the end of the century is what it said up at the top there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a little bit different perspective.
It's a plan.
Well, yeah, that's a whole another discussion about reproductivity rates and male fertility, etc. We won't get into that.
This brings up that whole debate I recall from the 70s, 80s about world food shortages, population explosion.
Mm-hmm.
None of that happened.
No.
And you had people at the highest levels of economics and what forecasting saying, yep, we're due for this massive explosion. We're going to eat all the food. We're all going to starve. And it didn't happen.
Mm-mm. Well, that's a very interesting discussion. I don't know if we're necessarily going to go there this evening, but it's a very interesting discussion. What happened? I mean, there was advances in agriculture. I mean, the density of agricultural production increased considerably since the mid 20th century. In other words, growing more food on less land. That was one factor. there was multiple factors, of course,
and more reliably, right?
and
Less
more reliably.
yeah,
right.
less likely to have some factor that destroys a ton of the food.
Right.
Well,
It's
then
safe.
you've also got different pesticides that increase the output, but also damages people and makes people ill. That people die off.
However, interesting though, I mean, if you just look at lifespan in the aggregate, people have gotten considerably. The average lifespan has gone up considerably since the mid 20th century, and most especially in a lot of the third world countries.
Well,
No,
but and look at the current crop of aging, like me and you, Randall. We're generally healthier than our ancestors were at our age. You know.
Yeah.
People at 60, 65 were considered ancient and physical. I remember my grandparents, great grandparents, and they were literally ancient before their time. I'm 73. I just turned 73 in November. I'm in pretty good health. You
Yeah.
know?
You go, Mike.
And you are as well, Randall. You know. So the state of the health of the elderly is getting better.
Well, that's been my impression. Yeah. I would like to live for another 100 years, to tell you the truth. I'm having a good time.
And we're not dying off and leaving it to the young people yet. So
thank God for that.
Fuck you, Mike.
Eat it.
No, we're not talking
He
about.
actually said eat it.
Kyle, are you 40 yet, Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so you're
turned 40.
don't worry, man. You're
Oh, okay,
not in
wasn't-
that.
You weren't talking to me, Mike?
No,
I love you, Mike.
I'll admit you.
Let's be a team.
I tell you though, I am a little bit worried about some of these. Maybe we shouldn't get into that, but I'm just
No.
like, oh God, really?
Sorry.
Well, yeah. Listen, you young people out there, you got to get smart. I know some of you are. I think maybe you know what? I think maybe there's an awakening among some of the younger people. I certainly hope so.
Absolutely, there is.
Got to get them out of those brainwashing factories that is modern education. That's the first start. But
Well, believe it or not, you elderly folks, at this point, though you may be young at some level, Graham and Randall are influencing a lot of those young people, and they're waking up to it. You know, they want to know their past, and you're putting the story together better than anybody previously, or somebody that says this is exactly what it was. The way you're laying it out and Graham's laying it out is it's a mystery, it's a curiosity, it's something that's not fully solved.
yeah,
And this is I think they see that that's their past, that's their future, and it's a point of commonality that they can all tune into and say, yeah, let's figure this out. What are we all about? Why are we here? What are we moving toward? Appreciate you guys for making that clear path for them.
well, Brad, to us old geezers like me and Mike, hearing that from young people like you, Brad, it's it's very heartwarming. It's all you youngsters out there.
My friends for my whole life have been 15 to 20 years older than me, right? Like you guys. So it's like at some point they're going to be 15 to 20 years younger, and I'm going to want to pull them up into, hey, see what these other guys, path they laid the way for us. So,
Did you hear that, Kyle? Apparently, we're not Brad's friends because we're not. Man,
you tweeners.
Brad.
I thought we were friends, bro. All right, Mike.
Oh, Brad,
It's
let me
me and
see.
you, buddy.
Let me see, Brad. Is this will 2023 make 25 years? I've been saying it was like I've known that guy for like 25 years, and we haven't never quite been there. Is this the year?
We're past the quarter century. We're into
Oh my God, we are
root 5 kind of stuff. We're in 2.6 world. Yeah.
Ooh, well, I mean, we should have some kind of commemoration, I guess.
Yeah, 1997 to 2023 is 26 years, so that's crazy, man.
Oh man,
Do you have an anniversary date?
and they've never had a fight.
That's right.
Well,
we had a few. We've been annoyed a few times.
I've pushed a bit. No, well, the easy thing to base off is the group meeting that I had where he spoke about comets, and it was at the same time that his documentary was released on TBS about Comet Hale-Bopp.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an easy. That was late March. And
Nin-
actually
97.
wasn't it was like the closest that Hale-Bopp came to the Earth or
Yeah.
came to the sun, I forget, but
To the
so
Earth.
that would be a good
Yeah.
0 point for me and Randall working together.
Yeah, that night, Hale-Bopp got its closest in its orbit. It got its closest point to the Earth, and that was while the documentary was airing
on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Fire
crazy
from the
cool.
Sky.
Yep.
But God, that's 26 years ago. Wow. Yeah, that was an
You're a
interesting
legend.
in my own time.
Damn right.
Well, I just keep doing what I'm doing. It's, no different. I guess it's gone from dozens to hundreds. And now I don't know what the numbers are. The last Rogan podcast, I think, is 5 million views around there just on YouTube. Kind of a little
Hey.
scary.
Truth resonates.
Well, it's, it's
People
kind
hear
of
it
like
and they get it,
the
and they're
release
like, yeah,
of
give me
this.
more of that.
I think the release of this information and the interest in this is almost kind of following a graph very much like the one we just looked at for the size of world population. It's just within the last few years it's gone exponential. It's gone, it was flatlined for years with some little blips in it. And like I'd say within the last 2 to 4 years, it's the interest has just suddenly mushroomed in. Just asking questions about lots of things that are not explained yet. I mean, there's a lot out there that we haven't figured out, contrary to what those in charge would like to kind of create the impression that there's experts. You saw this like in reading the criticisms of Ancient Apocalypse and Graham Hancock. Well, the experts say, the experts have come in and thoroughly debunked Ignatius Donnelly, right? Well, or thoroughly debunked Graham Hancock, who's been spinning conspiracy theories and all of this. And like I go, well, the experts, let me see here. Wait a second. These experts who are not named, well, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but, there are several archaeologists that are listed as experts, right? So you got the guy over in the UK. I probably mentioned his name last time, but I don't need to mention his name, but, he's done excavations in Iron Age Greece. So he's probably very knowledgeable about, I haven't seen his work or papers that he's written, but he's probably very knowledgeable about that particular strata in that particular place in the world, right? But they keep going, well, the experts, but think about this. Now, obviously, we all know Graham. I know Graham very well. Brad knows him well. We've hung out. Graham is an extremely intelligent man. He's very high IQ, very incisive thinker. He's been studying this for 30 years. He's traveled around the world and visited 90 or 100 countries looking at this stuff. He's written multiple huge books, densely researched, with references. If you look in each of his recent books, you're looking at like 400 references in each book. So he's read thousands of papers. He's interviewed hundreds of people across the spectrum, from the fringe all the way to people doing solid, hardcore science. Now, he's been doing this for 30 years. So the perspective I think that we need to clarify here is that Graham, as far as is the work and that he's doing, the speculation that he's doing, the time period that he's looking at, Graham Hancock is the fucking expert, okay?
Yeah, right.
He knows 10 times or 100 times more about this than you phonies do, okay? So let's just settle this discussion there. What experts? Bring these experts out. isn't it interesting that the experts that have been approached so far about debating Graham at the Cosmic Summit in June? No, they're not interested. They make some condescending excuse, but that's all they've got. They won't debate. So anyways, the whole thing, that whole response to Graham has just really pissed me off. Who did I talk to today? Was it George, our good friend George Howard?
Yeah.
That the Daily Caller. Yeah, I think it was George.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Daily Caller. There's a woman who writes for the Daily Caller who's doing a very in-depth defense of.
Kay is her name. Yeah.
Who is that? I would like to read her.
She's a reporter for the Daily Caller.
Do you know her name?
Kay.
Which
Hey.
is like
K.
a
Smith.
comedy, kind of like The Onion or something.
No.
I need to look into it.
Daily Caller was started by Tucker. Oh, Tucker.
Okay.
My interview with Tucker Carlson has been up now for what?
I've watched part of it. George gave me
Yeah, I
access.
watched it yesterday.
Yeah. It's
beginning
great.
to end, so highly recommend it. So yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes too, because great overview,
So
great
far,
introduction. Yeah, good thing to
yeah.
share with people that are just getting into Randall and the whole topic. Yeah, excellent job.
It's really cool, and he asks good questions.
He
Oh,
does,
yeah.
I was
for
really
sure.
impressed. Yeah, it was. I haven't watched the whole thing yet because I got home and then my wife wanted to watch, so I started over, and then we didn't make it all the way through. So
Yeah,
But so
I
far,
have a
it's great.
feeling I'll be back.
Well, what I caught is at the end, he said, well, this is one of the best conversations I've had in years. And so that go back beyond season 2 of his show and season 1 of his show. So the whole time he's been doing these hundreds of shows, that's like ranking for him. It really struck a chord.
Well, and then, it was all interesting stuff, but we barely scratched the surface. So, yeah,
you still say that we've been doing this
Welcome to Randall.
podcast for
Yeah.
3 years.
We've been doing the podcast for 3 years. We've still
We're
barely
just-
scratched the surface after 3 years. So
I guess this.
Got plenty of material up, folks. Stay tuned.
Really 600 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is going to be, so just, I segued off, mentioned the Cosmic Summit for people that don't know. You guys will be there, right?
Oh,
Serpent
yeah.
Brothers?
right. Yeah,
You better be there. Wouldn't be right if you guys weren't there.
We're gonna be there.
And
Thank you, Randall.
Thank you.
Is our good friend Ben Van Kirkland?
Oh, yeah.
Uncharted.
He's going to
X,
be there.
yes.
Yeah,
Ben will be there.
Ben will be.
We'll
Oh,
both
yeah,
be-
that's right. He is actually going to. You guys both are giving.
Yeah, Ben's giving a presentation, and so am I. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be great. And
Yeah.
for
I'm
those of
Sweeping
you
floors,
guys,
Randall.
what's that, Kyle?
Keeping the floors
Kyle's
clean.
the janitor. He's gonna make sure the floors are clean.
Okay, well, so in other words, I can just throw whatever my trash. If I'm drinking the coffee, I can just throw the cup down on the floor.
He's
That's
going to make
right,
sure
yeah.
we have a stage
Yeah.
for you all, the rest
Kyle,
of you
yeah,
all to
I'm
talk
doing-
from.
I'm working on production.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm going to say that both Ben, now that I've heard both Ben and Russ's presentations, they're great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You really,
Thank you, guys.
yeah. And I think I've heard yours twice now. And I think if you keep doing it, I have a feeling it's just going to keep getting better.
Thank you. Yeah.
You get that sense that as you present it each time, it just
Yeah,
kind of
get
rolls.
better at it.
You
Well,
do.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he's been to Egypt again since the last time I've seen it, which
Yeah.
is probably 3 times. So I know his sense of all of it is going to be concise and his verbalization. So yeah, excellent part of the program that's coming up there in June 17th and 18th, Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah, the Cosmic Summit 2023.com.
Yeah. And I think by that time, I'll have a better handle on some of the theoretical implications of plasma technology, because I'm really sensing that that's the direction we're going to be going to solve this problem of ancient technology.
All right.
Plasmoid or plasma?
Well, a plasmoid is a coherent configuration of plasma in a toroidal
Okay.
shape. I mean, you can have plasma, a lightning bolt is plasma, aurora borealis is plasma. But when you get it, a plasmoid
Excellent
is when it takes
distinction.
that characteristic toroidal shape.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's where this thing gets really interesting, because once you get that coherent configuration, there are ways that you can extract energy from it. Just think about a sphere and imploding the sphere along its axis so that you get that toroidal shape. It bends in at the top. Picture a perfect sphere. Picture an axis with a North Pole and a South Pole, and then you collapse it so that the North Pole meets the South Pole. And basically what you've got here is a situation now is that there are ways to accelerate electrons and ions along a pathway that circles down into the interior of that donut. And so you have that clockwise circulation, like in the northern hemisphere, counterclockwise in the southern, and they meet at the equatorial plane. These two vortices of whirling plasmas that are now coherent into this vortex form, almost like two tornadoes touching down. And at that 0 point is where the energy can be extracted. The theory behind it is actually pretty impressive once you get into it.
Ultimately, I'd say, and you can confirm this, Randall, but that's basically a scaled down model of a black hole.
It is kind of, yes. And it's also based upon one of the implements within the loop there is being referred to as a thunderstorm generator, because it's basically creates miniature thunderstorms within these concentric spheres. It's really interesting stuff. And I'm not ready to talk about it in detail, only until I get much better clarification on all of the specifics. But yeah, I mean, and then we can obviously, if we want, Kyle, and I appreciate, Kyle, before we started here tonight, we were discussing the whole energy thing. Kyle was expressing skepticism, which is very important and valuable. There absolutely needs to be. And that's how science works. You got to have somebody who's going to say, wait a second, show me, prove it to me. And then that's the challenge. And so we're going to do that, I think, hopefully over the next few months. And by the time we get to June, I could see possibly applications here, coherent applications possible, that, hypotheses about how stones could be cut, for example. Because if a stone face is exposed to a high intensity plasma, it causes atomic changes literally in the structure of the molecules on the face of the stone that can be measured. And so there becomes an objective way of determining whether or not stones have been exposed to plasma energies. So that's, you could set up, so what you got to do in something like this is set up tests and see if we can duplicate. And I will mention that as far as, and you're absolutely right, Kyle, when you said earlier, we've got to see working prototypes.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just see a video, but a video can still be an important component in that process, because somebody's got to marshal the resources. And this is why I brought some people together, with the Navy SEALs, with the inventor, and the wheels are now in motion to build a prototype, several working prototypes based upon the principles of coherent plasmoids. So,
are you talking about two seals and a walrus? Those guys?
Well, one of those guys.
Okay.
One of those guys and his team of other, so we had a meeting at his house with 4 of the SEALs there who are, mechanical engineers, physics background, electrician background, and meeting with Malcolm. So we had a 3-hour meeting where Malcolm basically laid out the basic principles, gave them schematics, and they were actually working on price lists now to acquire all of the
materials.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be ongoing, and we will report on this as it evolves.
Team of former Navy SEALs that have the qualified backgrounds with engineering and sciences and specific skills that would allow them to create a prototype. And how appropriate that Randall knows these guys and can pass it on to them, and they can, grab the baton and take it to the next stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to be negative, but I just.
Well,
I
you're
think
not. No, you're not being negative.
Well, I just want to say
We-
this:
we need
it
it.
would be great if it worked, but it
Mhm.
might not. That's all I'm saying. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. It might not. It could, and it would be awesome.
Well,
But people
I
got to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind.
I'm not talking about you. I'm because you know way more about this than I do, and other people that are hearing it from you. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was like 5 years of, hearing it and getting exposed to, getting stuff that I could documentation before I finally said, okay, it's starting to look like this is viable. And then I started meeting some of the other people involved, and these were highly qualified, very credible people who believe this works. And so that was a big part that convinced me that this was not just some fly-by-night guy tinkering in his garage. This has gone way beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think a
that's
big
great.
part of the synchronicity is the numbers that repeatedly have showed up in the ancient writings, in the platonic solids, in the solar system, and now they're also repeated in this new technology. Those same numbers are being utilized to extract this energy. So I don't know if I could recreate it, but I tried to spit it back to Randall. If this is part of the geometry that organizes the universe, you'd also think that there would be part of the geometry that would allow spontaneous creation of infinite energy out of that. So it's there, and he recognized that these numbers were again consistent going way back to these ancient cultures and religions and books and studies, and here they are again, trying to show us a new technology, a new physics, a new way to expand, expulse, get that energy,
Expound.
Oh man, expunge.
Extract?
I don't think that's the word. But
That's as good as any.
extract,
Yeah, get
sure.
that energy that's omnipresent in the universe everywhere simultaneously. And is that the 0 point? I think we're ready to make that leap, and this could be the math and the number system that allows us to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I'm with Kyle. I really want to. That's why I brought these guys together, because after I talked to them about it, I talked to them with the idea in mind that they may have the skill set to and the wherewithal to create a prototype, and they did and do. So I arranged to get all these guys together with the hope that out of what will come out of this is some models that we can actually test and see for ourselves.
For
And
sure.
I figured that's the only way I'm ultimately going to really learn about it, is to watch the whole thing take form. So, I have copies of the schematics. They've now got copies of the schematics. And so they're working up parts lists right now as we speak. So,
That's great.
Cool.
Fantastic.
yeah.
We'll see.
What's about break time? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
let's take a break. We can come back. We can start the climate
Well,
stuff.
thanks
Sure.
for saying that too,
Yeah.
Randall. I appreciate that.
Oh, okay, good. Well, you listen, don't
Well,
I appreciate you, because right now you haven't really looked into it. And so
Yeah.
when you do, I think the more you look into it, the more you'll go, okay, yeah, it really does look like there is something here. But again, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And Roland Perry driving a car isn't proof for us, only to the extent that he's a credible source.
Individual. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if he's credible, which, the guy is not, he's like I said, he's a very famous Australian author. You can look him up right
There's
online
30,
right now.
Like 30 books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well known.
Yeah. All right. Let's take
All
a
right.
break.
Well,
there.
All right.
Okay. Let's
We'll
do
take
it.
a break and be right back.
we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Kosmographia. After a long break, lots of discussion. Sub Rosa. But we will be getting back to the climate change stuff. But this is somewhat of a free-form conversation. Highly planned out. But then
Very planned freeform.
And then
Well,
More planned than
everybody's
a live show.
everybody's been dispersed, and we're
Yes.
kind of coming back together, and we are allowed to do a little improvisation from now and then.
absolutely keep it interesting, right?
Mhm.
And so you got some things to show us before we get back to the climate change stuff.
Well, yeah, and of course, this obviously has a lot to do with climate change. Climate change, back in the late Pleistocene, somewhere between 12 and maybe 30 to 35,000 years ago. But this was the paper that where did it go?
2017, the guy that was just on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, John Reeves. For those who
yes.
who saw
Excellent
it, yeah,
show.
and
Go
I haven't
check it
even
out.
seen it yet. I got to get it watched this weekend. But
That's so good.
okay, so this is the paper that came out in 2017. We'll look at it, and I'll do a share screen here in a second. This was the title, quite a mouthful for the title here, but this paper, which came out in November, published online November 30th, 2017. And let's see, we recognize some of the names. Firestone was second author, first author, Jonathan T. Hagstrom. And Hagstrom is with the U.S. Geological Survey. Second one, Richard B. Firestone, who, was the lead author of the 2007 paper, who's with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. And then third is Alan West, who we had on the April event in Sedona.
Right. Easter.
So Alan was the third. James C. Weaver was the fourth author. And he is with the Wyss Institute of Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard University. And then Ted Bunch is a name that I've recognized quite readily because he's been around for decades. He would easily be one of the world's foremost experts on impact proxies. And he is with the School of Earth Science and Environmental Sustainability, Northern Arizona University, Flagstaff, Arizona. So this is the authors of this paper, which is entitled Impact-Related Microspherules in Late Pleistocene Alaskan and Yukon Muck Deposits Signify Recurrent, important word, recurrent episodes of catastrophic emplacement. And then in the abstract, I'll just read parts of that. Large quantities of impact-related microspherules have been found in fine-grained sediments retained within 7 out of 9 radiocarbon-dated late Pleistocene mammoth and bison skull fragments. Did you get that picture of what I just read? Large quantities of impact-related microspherules have been found in fine-grained sediments retained within 7 out of 9 radiocarbon-dated late Pleistocene mammoth and bison skull fragments. So inside the skulls, they found this fine-grained sediment with large quantities of impact-related microspherules.
Do they
well
mean
preserved
embedded into
what?
the bone, like
Well,
embedded into the bones, or inside the cavity?
The sediments inside the cavity.
I would assume inside the cavity in the sediment that's inside the cavities of these skulls. The skulls are from Mammuthus primigenius and Bison priscus, which is the, Mammuth primigenius. That's one of the big 4 species of mammoths that lived in that did live at the end of the Ice Age and was mostly predominant in the tundras of Siberia and Alaska and Beringia. The well-preserved fossils were recovered from frozen muck deposits, which is organic rich silt, exposed within the Fairbanks and Klondike mining districts of Alaska, USA, and the Yukon Territory, Canada. In addition, elevated platinum abundances were found in sediment analyzed from 3 out of 4 fossil skulls. In view of this new evidence, the mucks and their well-preserved but highly disrupted and damaged vertebrate and botanical remains are reinterpreted in part as, and I'm going to guess with a high degree of confidence that this applies to Reeves deposits that he was talking to Joe about. Highly disrupted and damaged vertebrate and botanical remains are reinterpreted in part as blast deposits that resulted from several episodes of air bursts and ground ice impacts within the Northern Hemisphere during the late Pleistocene times, and they give a range here of approximately 46 to 11,000 years before present. Such a scenario might be explained by encounters with cometary debris in Earth-crossing orbits that was generated by fragmentation of a large, short-period comet within the inner solar system. And then as far as cometary debris in Earth-crossing orbits, they suggest, in parentheses, the Taurid complex. And of course, and for those of you that haven't seen the Halloween presentation, get it and watch it. Okay. So let us look at.
By the way,
here. Yeah.
Alan West is on the website for Cosmic Summit 2023.
Oh, he's been added
as a
in.
speaker,
So
Yeah, he's listed as a speaker.
excellent. All right. So this paper, you can see the 2 squares here. So there's Fairbanks is one of the sites that they looked at and extracted samples of, and then this one over here near Dawson City was the other one. Check this out. Let's look into little details here. You see this white line? That's the Laurentide ice sheet. So it's reaching from here all the way over to the Atlantic and covering most of Canada. And then you see this white line is the Cordilleran. You can see how close they're coming here. Let's say, I don't know. Okay, it says 23 to 19,000 years before present. Map showing eastern Beringia during the last glacial maximum when eustatic sea level was 120 meters below its present level. Megafauna fossils of this study were initially collected between 1940 and 1954 from mining operations near Fairbanks, Alaska. And I bet you Frank Hibben was involved in some of those early collections. And more recently from the Klondike mining district near Dawson City in the Yukon Territory. Permafrost zones discriminated by dashed purple curves were continuous, greater than 90% frozen ground, discontinuous and sporadic white curves outline areas of both continental and mountain glaciation, within the latter having occurred in the Brooks Range of northern and the Alaskan Range of southern. So you can see here's the Alaskan Range down here, and here's the Brooks Range up here. So they were heavily glaciated. But in between, it's interesting to note that it was unglaciated. And then all of Beringia was unglaciated. And here, this is something to note about this graphic, is you really begin to see the extent of the exposed land from the 400-foot lower sea level. So all of this was, a continuous landmass across here, occupied by millions of Pleistocene megafauna. And interestingly, these same type of deposits that are showing up in Alaska are found over here in Siberia. And it's interesting to speculate what may still be on the bottom of the ocean, both the Arctic Ocean and the North Pacific Ocean. Certainly, there are numerous accounts And we'll be circling back to talking about, we'll do a series on what I think of as the lost world, the whole late Pleistocene and what was going on. Because even just since we started doing this podcast a few years ago, there's been some very interesting new evidence and things that have come out. Anyhow, you can really get an extent of how vast this now submerged landmass really was. This was not, I remember when I first learned about the Bering Land Bridge and looked at maps, I was thinking it was just, these two peninsulas connected here. But, that was decades ago. But, obviously it was way more than that. You can see all of the tan area here was emergent. So it was densely inhabited by large numbers of megafauna.
I think the new Siberian islands, they should be up. I don't know if is it that them or are they farther north?
I think they're up here a little further.
Yeah, so they probably were part of that. And
yes.
those are covered also in
yeah.
megafauna fossils, frozen trees, or the reports say that anyway.
Yeah.
So that might be an indication of how many were down there. So
right.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then there would have been a isolated mountain glacier here. Now, of course, now these are just remnant glaciers from what they were. But so take a good look here. Maybe we should even pull up some maps. Take a closer look. But I thought I'd just touch on this because of the fact that it's being talked about right now after the recent Rogan podcast.
Okay.
Did you want to look at something else there? I thought.
Are those squares defining where the muck deposits are?
Yes.
And where the studies from the 2017 paper are, and where John Reeves' recovery sites are?
I don't know where John Reeves' recovery sites are.
Okay.
And they wouldn't have been located in this paper, but I'm sure we'll find out.
That's all exciting though to try to track that down and see where that is. That's
I tend to do some
in-depth. He does show it on the podcast.
If you pull
they pull up a map.
They pull up a map and show you close to the exact spot. So.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to.
Yeah, I'd like to see where it compares to where Frank Hibben was.
Yeah, I know. Me too. So then. Here, I'll just
and then also in Graham's was it America Before? He spent a chapter talking about the muck deposits also.
Yeah.
And kind of defending Frank C. Hibben.
Oh yeah, he did it. Graham actually did a great defense of Hibben.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he did. The fossil skull fragments assembled for this study are Wisconsin in age. So that's a pretty wide stretch. I mean, because we're going back, to over 100,000 years ago. So we will focus on information concerning emplacement of the corresponding Gold Stream formation. Then it's thing to see supplementary information, which I don't have pulled up here on the stratigraphy of it. But there was the King Solomon formation in the Klondike district, and their incorporated vertebrate and plant remains. Similar organic rich lust deposits also occur in Siberia and are called Yedoma, Yedoma. So that's just what I just mentioned, that the same kind of deposits are found over in Siberia. So overall, the fossil bones recovered from these units show a spectrum of preservation ranging from highly weathered to exceptionally well preserved with intact ancient DNA. The recovered mummified or freeze-dried partial carcasses also indicate that some part of the permafrost in the Fairbanks and Klondike areas has existed there since Wisconsin time. Moreover, soil horizons were often buried and frozen before the plant material could decompose, in some instances preserving it for more than 700,000 years. The remarkable preservation of vertebrate and plant remains within the mucks, however, is in stark contrast to the physical disruption and damage affecting much of this material. Much of the skeletal remains from Alaska and Yukon were disarticulated and broken prior to freezing. And the rare preserved carcasses were often mangled and torn apart. Now, this is exactly conforms to how Hibben described it. Such dismemberment has been attributed to predators and scavengers. But these explanations raise questions, including why the carcasses remaining fat and flesh had not been consumed. In addition, the fine-grained character of the muck differs markedly from that of the more massive logs, megafaunal bones, and tusks enclosed within it. Massive logs, megafaunal bones, and tusks. Although the valley bottom mucks are thought to have accumulated from gradual downslope movement of primary upland loess by slope wash, creep, and mud flow, this scenario appears inconsistent with the required rapid burial and freezing of well-preserved carcasses and plant remains. Fossil bones are astonishingly abundant in the frozen ground of Alaska, and most observers from Quackenbush to Poway et al. Have made similar remarks. The majority of Alaskan fossils have been found in creek valley bottoms, but the fossils have not been abraded or water-worn. Bones are generally found throughout a given valley and have been recovered from almost all creek valleys that have been mined. According to Otto Geist, most of the Pleistocene bones from Fairbanks District were found in black muck containing plant remains. In Klondike District, most of bones are mostly found near the base of the King Solomon Formation. Interesting name for a geological strata. Usually within a few decimeters of its contact with the underlying auriferous gravel beds. Auriferous means gold-bearing, of course. Now, how interesting that there has been apparently, so after these deposits are emplaced, then the normal meteorological waters draining through these loess deposits are washing the gold down through them. So it's now been accumulating for presumably, 10 or 12 or 20,000 years, or at the base of this muck, and it's in the gravel beds. And ultimately, didn't Reeves say that was the condition there in his deposits?
Yeah, I think he was basically saying it ends up sitting on top of the bedrock below and mixed in with the gravel below all the muck. That's where the gold is at. Yeah.
So where is this? Where's the ultimate origin of this gold? Why is gold being apparently contained within these muck deposits?
It's a great question. I don't know.
All right,
But they're some of them are very rich fields of gold too. Like he was talking about how much has been pulled out of certain areas out there.
All right, so I got the paper has some interesting photos in it. There's one here actually with looks like a quite young Frank Hibben. The pictures I've seen of him when he's older, but let's see. So let me do another share screen here. That's Hibben right there on the right.
Oh yeah, look at those bones around him. Man, look at that.
Yeah. And then if we scroll down, look at this.
Yep, you can see the...
Look at that.
Look at that muck, folks. Man.
Wow. Let me
we
zoom
need a
out.
Giant water hose.
Yeah. Okay, so the photographs are taken in 1941. at the Cripple Creek Mine located just west of Fairbanks. Frank C. Hibben on August 3rd at Wright holding a broken mammoth's humerus. There he is right there. And an unidentified person holding a bison skull fragment here.
Okay, so according to the overkill hypothesis, this would be basically a junk pile where the ancient Americans threw their rubbish.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we know now where you stand on the issue, Monty.
I was just trying to inject a little humor here, guys.
That's what they would have.
know.
That's what they would have said.
Very
yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Well, no, but it's always okay to inject a little measure of irony, and that's what you were doing. You were inserting a little irony into the conversation.
Right, so most of Alaska and the Yukon is the midden mound for the
yeah.
for the hunter for the
right.
Pleistocene hunters. Yeah. Okay.
And Siberia too.
Right. Also Siberia. Yeah.
They obviously hunted a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Yes, they were tree hunters.
Tree hunters. Yeah. Otto Geist. Okay, so this is Otto Geist here on August 4th, standing next to a runoff stream from hydraulic jets used to thaw and wash away the muck overburden, which is in the background, and expose the gold-bearing gravels. See figure 2. Okay, did we? No,
yeah,
yes.
So note all the trees and logs. What did it say?
We'll come back to that.
Oh,
So here's
okay.
a cross section of that particular deposit. Yeah, there. Notice the gold rich zone is it's percolated all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, it sits in the depressions. There's another one above it. See it? A small one above it, the gold rich zone. It's
Right there. Yeah. It
That is
accumulates.
so cool, dude. I don't know.
Sifts out. Yeah, it's so heavy and dense that it just goes to the bottom of everything, including the gravel.
Yeah. Yep. So let's go back to this.
Yeah, note the logs, branches, and other plant material protruding from the fine-grained frozen mucks. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Both photographs are from the Frank C. Hibben photograph collection, courtesy of the Maxwell Museum of Might be worth paying a visit to the Maxwell Museum of Anthropology. I'd love to see that collection.
Yeah.
What I can't understand about this is how you can get a muck pile that thick. So, in some cases 60 feet or more, and there's bones at the bottom of it, and not just bones, but there's bits of flesh and stuff that's still
the bones are scattered all throughout the muck.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that they're frozen, which is part of what preserved the flesh.
Yeah.
But how did they freeze 60 feet under mud fast enough to preserve the flesh before it rotted?
Yeah, it's like if the source of the cold is the atmosphere, it takes a long time to freeze through 60 feet of mud down to the bottom of it.
To preserve the flesh.
Yeah.
In some cases, there's like flesh preserved.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't really striated at all that I could tell. So
No.
It's not a pulsing in and out of a wave or a tsunami. That's what I was going to ask when you started in there. Is this like the result of a huge wave that comes in and then pulls all that material back out in one big mass? Or how do you end up with that actual deposit? Yeah.
So
and like you're saying, Kyle, how the bones and the other stuff end up at the bottom?
Well, I think how does it get? Yeah, I'm saying I'm trying to figure out how it froze fast enough 60 feet under mud to preserve flesh.
Yeah, well, that's a central question right there, Kyle. You nailed it, man. But let's look at some more stuff here. I'm going to read here in reference to the fossil bone dispersal and breakage. Starts with a quote here from number 7, which is probably, let's see, number 7 is who it's quoting here.
Guess if it was jumbled up with big chunks of ice, maybe. Because
Gibbons does describe it as there's big lenses of ice.
yeah,
mixed
so
in
maybe
with
maybe it was like, it's not just mud, but it's like ice cubes in the mud.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a quote from a 1943 paper, which I actually have a copy of, by S. Tabor, Perennially Frozen Ground in Alaska, Its Origin and History. Now, that's a very interesting paper, and I wouldn't be surprised if you could actually find it on Google Scholar. Maybe while I'm doing this, Kyle, do you ever use Google Scholar, or is it philosophically opposed
I've used Google Gentleman.
I would bet you could find
to
it.
use
You
that
wanna
joke again.
let's see if we can find it, because if it is, then people could actually download it and read it. It's a really interesting read. I've read the paper several times. Perennially Frozen Ground in Alaska. Anyhow, I wouldn't be surprised if they have it, by S. Tabor. Okay, so back to the question of the fossil bone dispersal and breakage, and the quote from Tabor: "The dispersal of the bones is as striking as their abundance." End of quote. Articulated bones are scarce in Beringia, with the exception of small rodent carcasses found underground within their nests and burrows. Not only are individual megafaunal bones found separately or mixed together in concentrated bone beds, they also are often broken. In examining large collections of Pleistocene fossil bones in New York, and that would be at the American Museum of Natural History in New York, and a Yukon government warehouse in Whitehorse, we noted that the majority had been broken, including the largest femora and humeri, with some still containing relict marrow, supporting the lack of predation. Well, just one more piece of evidence that these animals weren't hunted to death or didn't die under normal circumstances, because they were removed from, their remains were obviously not accessed by scavengers.
Right.
Because the mucks have apparently remained frozen since Wisconsin time, dispersal and breakage of bones must have occurred prior to freezing and was not a general byproduct of the mining operations. McPhee et al. Attempted to explain the dismemberment of Pleistocene carcasses and the resultant dispersal and breakage of bones recovered from Yedoma or Yedema deposits on Russia's Pamir Peninsula as being caused by movements of ice in valley bottoms during spring breakup. They suggested that exposed limbs or other body parts of partially buried carcasses could have been sheared off by moving ice, and that ice caused push fractures that could have produced forces great enough to break bones as large as mammoth femora and humeri. They acknowledged, however, that the exquisite condition of carcasses and many bones argues against these remains having spent a significant amount of time at the surface or having undergone any manner of repeated redeposition. So that was, basically somebody attempting to frame the phenomena within a uniformitarian context.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what I've got some very interesting imagery here. Let's take a look at some of this. So here is a photograph of an Alaskan bison skull from the American Museum of Natural History collection recovered at Fairbanks Creek in 1949. The skull has been dated at 18,635 plus or minus 105 calibrated years before present. Scanning electron microscope images of two microspheres magnetically separated from fine-grained sediment contained within the skull. Now, that's an interesting date. That would have been right there smack in the middle of the late glacial maximum. Before the thawing began, before the warming began, in the Balling Alarod. This would have been really, I think, close to the older, driest times.
So what is it doing up there mingled up with a bunch of trees?
Well, yeah. And you know, we need to have a whole discussion at some point about radiocarbon dating, because there could be reasons to question there's called the old age effect that we need to look at. This might be dating older than it actually is, but the dating here is still an open issue, in my opinion. We go through here, we can see more here. This is a photograph of Alaskan mammoth skull fragments. Also from the American Museum of Natural History, collected in the Fairbanks Mining District. Now, this skull has been dated at 48,200, right? And then here's your scanning electron microscope images of microspherules recovered from fine-grained sediment encased within the skull fragments. Yellow numbers indicate 1, accretionary spherules, vesicles, smooth microstructures, textured microstructure, and dendritic microstructure, possible microcrater. Let's zoom in a little, take a closer look at some of this. So, 1, accretionary spherules. Look at this. Here's an accretionary spherule right there. Okay, that's an example of an accretionary spherule. Then we've got 2 vesicles, which are like undoubtedly places where bubbles of gas burst out while it was solidifying. 3, smooth microstructures. Not quite sure what they're seeing there. 4, textured micro. You can see, look at the texture. Can you see that, Kyle?
Yes.
Good. Okay, let me go one more in, even 2 more in. Then we've got
I think the smooth microstructure over there might be there's like a bump on it. It's smoothed out. I can kind of see it. I think maybe that's what they're talking about. Maybe.
No. If you look, can you see these kind of veinous?
Yeah, I'm looking at number 3. Sorry.
Oh, number 3 right here.
Yes,
sorry.
Yeah, there's
okay.
like a divot and a bump next to it. Maybe
yeah,
that's what they're
I
talking
see right
about.
here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, right there. Yeah. So then number 4 is the textured microstructure.
Right.
Number 5 is dendritic microstructure, which is pretty easy to see. And 6, a possible microcrater. And over here, yeah, look at these down here. Here's like 1. These are what they are calling accretionary spherules. So in the turbulent mix of this stuff, you've got the small spherules smashing into the bigger ones and then getting stuck to them. And there we have a photograph of an Alaskan bison skull, undated, scanning electron microscope images of 2 microspherules magnetically separated from fine-grained sediment contained within the skull. So, trying to get my head around the processes by which these microspherules end up. I suppose through filtration, they're being carried in water and muck that's filtering into the cavities within the skull. I mean, are they concentrating there in concentrations greater than external in the?
That's what I was wondering. Are they in abundance to what would be the normal background?
Right. Let's see what the results say. Oh, well, we'll look at one more here. We'll look at this photograph of a Yukon bison skull from the Territorial Government Collection in Whitehorse. The skull has been dated at 29,000. So we've got a date of 18-some thousand, 29,000, and 42, was it 42,000, 44,000?
I don't remember. Somewhere there.
It was in that quite a range, though. Now, this is to me raising some questions. I mean, if these dates are accurate, how are we getting this huge spread of these things, these specimens all within the same deposits?
Yeah, muck deposits. Yeah.
Or is the dating wrong?
Right.
Two microspherules magnetically separated from fine-grained sediment contained within the skull again. Okay, so here's the geochemistry of the microspherules. So yeah, it's over on the side with impact proxies, known impact proxies. Not anthropogenic, not cosmic in the sense of the normal rain of cosmic microspherules falling to the earth on a daily basis. Not consistent with volcanic. So the accretionary microspherules, they're being described as high temperature, melt, quenched, and accretionary microspherules. So you've got that. We just saw the pictures. The high temperature, melt, quenched, and accretionary microspherules, and platinum enrichments associated with sediments from the megafaunal fossils of this study are well-established indicators of extraterrestrial impact events. In light of this evidence, much of the death, dismemberment, burial, and preservation of megafaunal bones and partial carcasses within the frozen Beringian mucks is perhaps better explained by the catastrophic effects of cosmic impact rather than by more commonplace causes of mortality, such as illness, accidents, advanced age, and or predation. Well, yeah, I would think so. In the following discussion, we reinterpret parts of the mucks and their contents as blast deposits.
Right, blast, not water.
And attempt to resolve the apparent paradoxes and inconsistencies outlined above. Examples to be applied come from the studies of blast effects associated with the approximately 50,000-year-old meteor crater impact, the 1908 Tunguska airburst, 1945 and later nuclear tests, and the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption. The blast or shock waves associated with ground impacts or airbursts cause an almost instantaneous rise in air pressure to peak overpressures as the wave fronts expand at supersonic velocities. The subsequent mass movement of air generates blast winds, which travel more slowly than the blast waves, but can be just as damaging, if not more so. In general terms, the area A damaged by an explosion is proportional to the cube root of its yield, which is E squared, or A is proportional to E raised to the 2/3 power. The amount of damage is also a function of the explosion's height, and for a given yield, there is an optimum blast height at which the damage is maximized. For the 1908 Tunguska airburst, the blast height was approximately 6 to 9 kilometers, near the optimum height for an approximate 10 to 20 megaton blast. And trees of the Siberian taiga were knocked down over an area of 2,150 square kilometers. Intense thermal radiation was also associated with the Tunguska event. Within a radius of approximately 10 to 15 kilometers from the epicenter, the sides of trees facing the atmospheric impact were scorched, and ignited treetops were reported to have burned in many places for up to 24 hours. Kring quantified the air blast for the meteor crater impact using scaling relationships derived from nuclear bomb tests. Given an estimated explosive yield of approximately 20 to 40 megatons for an impact of an approximately 50-meter diameter iron asteroid, unlike Tunguska, which was probably an icy piece of a comet nucleus. The impact of approximately 50-meter diameter iron asteroid, the air blast would have flattened trees within a 16 to 22 kilometer radius of ground zero. Now, a 22 kilometer would have been 12, about 14 miles roughly. Okay. From ground zero. So figure it would have been trees would have been knocked down out to a radius of about 14 miles from ground zero for that 50-meter, say roughly 160-foot iron asteroid slamming, now not exploding in the atmosphere, but slamming into the ground, right? And damage them over an area of up to 8,500 square kilometers. Within a radius of approximately 3 to 5 kilometers, the ephemeral blast winds would have been greater than 1,000 kilometers per hour. They would have likely have scoured the surface of loose debris, plants, animals, and soil. And although decreasing in intensity with distance, would have remained fairly large up to distances of 20 to 40 kilometers. Both types of impact events, that is Tunguska type and asteroid impact into the ground type, would have killed megafauna from various levels of blast injuries. The primary blast injuries are caused by the nearly instantaneous change in environmental pressure from passage of the blast wave. In large mammals, the organs most commonly affected are the lungs, ears, bowel, and central nervous and cardiovascular systems. The blast wave can also fracture bones and cause dismemberment, including traumatic amputations and decapitations. From the exposure of a wide range of animals to nuclear tests, such as steers, burros, sheep, goats, monkeys, pigs, dogs, cats, rabbits, chickens, rats, hamsters, and mice, it was determined that large animals generally endure higher overpressures than smaller ones, and that animals affected by primary blast injuries usually die within a few minutes. Secondary blast injuries are associated with the subsequent blast wind and result from projectiles that have been picked up and energized by it. Sufficiently large fragments can also cause direct limb amputations and decapitations. Tertiary blast injuries result when victims are hurled against the ground or fixed objects. Often, victims tumble along the ground, sustaining multiple injuries. Miscellaneous blast injuries include inhalation of dust and burns from the explosion itself or from fires ignited by it. A modern example of a catastrophic explosion causing death and dismemberment of large mammals was the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. An equivalent explosive yield for the eruption is estimated to have been approximately 35 megatons. And the blast zone of downed trees and destroyed habitat covered an area of greater than 350 square kilometers. Animals within the blast zone died from suffocation, severe blast injuries, and falling timber and or pumice blocks. The stuff being blasted out. Can you imagine this stuff raining down? Pumice blocks of sufficient size and velocity to kill animals that it struck. Of the 24 sites where remains of elk and black-tailed deer were found, 5 were examined 1 year later by Lyman. All 5 sites were located approximately 15 kilometers away from the Mount St. Helens vent, and at this distance, mature trees had been snapped off and splintered near their base and completely stripped of their branches. The volcanic crater could not be seen from two of the sites where intervening ridges probably acted as deflectors. But the crater was visible at the other three sites where they would have been subjected to the full force of the blast. Portions of cervid skeletons were found under 20 to 60 centimeters of volcanic ash, and no soft tissue was preserved. Long bones at the sheltered sites were not broken, but those at the exposed sites were fractured, in some cases shattered, and were generally more disarticulated and widely scattered. Apparently, the elk and deer at the exposed sites were engulfed in the eruption's ash cloud, hurled along with trees, rock fragments, and pumice blocks, and deposited some distance away from their recovery zone. And carnivore damage to the bones was minimal because many of the bones were buried, and scavengers within the blast zone would have been killed as well. The blast injuries sustained by cervids at Mount St. Helens apparently match much of the damage exhibited by the vertebrate remains found within the Beringian mucks and Yedoma deposits. Broken and shattered bones, especially within the frozen mummies, have been attributed to retransportation and diagenetic processes. Feisenmayer, however, noted that bleeding had occurred at the break of the Beresovska mammoth's right foreleg and inferred it had still been alive at the time. That wouldn't have been a pleasant death.
No.
The mammoth, therefore, was initially thought to have fallen into a crevice, but instead could have been thrown and or tumbled across the ground by blast winds, come to rest in a surface depression or pit, and been covered over by blast-mobilized sediment. The segment of a bison's tail found under the Beresovka mammoth's foot could simply have been clipped off a nearby grazer by the blast and deposited along with the mammoth's carcass. That a healthy bull mammoth was instantly killed while grazing, subject to multiple broken bones and internal injuries, and rapidly buried along with a body part from another animal is consistent with the effects of a large explosive event. So,
wow,
interesting stuff. So, to conclude, the mixture of vertebrate remains, plant debris, and loess within the Beringian mucks is consistent with ground surface scouring, transport, and the chaotic redeposition of these materials in creek valleys by blast winds. Trees exposed to such winds would have been stripped of their branches, leaves, and barks, and either knocked down or broken off and splintered like those found in the muck deposits. The finely comminuted plant material distributed throughout the mucks might have resulted from pulverization of less durable plant debris within turbulent blast winds, and its carbonation could have been initially caused by scorching and or burning from intense thermal radiation associated with the atmospheric passage of hypervelocity impactors. Stacked layers of killed forests indicate that creek valley silt accumulation was not gradual or uniform, but it was deposited cyclically in large amounts over short intervals of time. In addition, less severely injured animals could have suffocated in the dense clouds of airborne silts. The buried forest layers, range of radiocarbon dates and microspherules associated with the vertebrate fossils indicate that deposition of the Alaskan and Yukon mucks would have required more than one impact event between approximately 48 and 18,000 years before present.
So if a blast like that happened over an ice sheet, then it's throwing the ice,
yes,
perhaps. Like, so you get all these ice cubes in really cold water.
Yes.
So maybe that's how it could be jumbled up in there. You break a bunch of bones, disarticulate the bodies, and then bury them and then rapidly they freeze.
Mhm.
Like they're in a slurry that's being stirred up and they just get cold real quickly. I don't know.
So this is interesting. The late Pleistocene megafaunal extinction events appear to have occurred over a time interval between approximately 46 and 24,000 years before present, prior to the late glacial maximum, and again over a shorter interval between approximately 15,000 and 11,000 years before present, near the end of the Pleistocene epoch. Which, of course, between 15 and 11 could put it right at the lower Younger Dryas boundary, which, if I had to guess, would be one of. So, what it's looking like is that there's probably at least 2 impact events preserved in these mucks.
Yeah. So, did they get does it all get redeposited, or do you think it's actually there's 2 different layers in there?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to just go and see for myself. I
Just need
guess.
to go and see.
Get on
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
Big Brad.
We better
Mhm.
wrap it up for today,
Yeah.
Randall.
Okay.
I
We're
think
already
so.
at the end. Just when it starts getting fun.
Yeah. Wait, you haven't been having fun this whole time?
Okay. Final couple of comments here. The presence of 2 geochemically distinct microspheral populations. Okay, so now that sort of again supports dates. If you've got sort of clustering of 2 sets of dates, and now you've got your microspheral, they're geochemically distinct, would show 2 different events without necessarily giving you a date on those events. It would just tell you that because of the distinction in your geochemistry, they're different. So the presence of 2 geochemically distinct microspheral populations found by us in late Pleistocene skull fragments points to at least 2 episodes of cosmic impact and or different target source rocks. And the skull ages indicate that perhaps a greater number of such episodes, approximately 2 to 4, occurred. It is also unclear how many separate extinction events there were both before and after the late glacial maximum. By comparing our carbon-14 dates with the extinction age ranges in figure 9, which we didn't look at, it appears plausible that there could have been fewer discrete impact-related extinction events prior to the late glacial maximum, possibly occurring around 40 to 42,000 years ago, 34 to 37, and 27 to 30, with another at the onset of the Younger Dryas stadium. So if this holds up, then, over that period of prior to the late glacial maximum. So this is, so this is showing multiple events.
Right.
Being preserved there. So the conclusions, state that suggests that large amounts of melt-quenched impact spherules associated with Pleistocene megafaunal remains were deposited in the mucks of eastern Beringia after approximately 48,000 years ago. The data we acquired indicates they are not the normal cosmic rain on the Earth. They are not anthropogenic and they are not volcanic, but were most likely produced by hypervelocity airbursts and ground ice impacts. Based on this evidence, and the damaged and disrupted character of the muck's vertebrae and botanical material documented by others, we conclude that some parts of the Beringian muck and Yedoma deposits were catastrophically emplaced during the late Pleistocene by blast winds associated with multiple episodes of cosmic impact. Blast winds from those impacts would have swept across the Beringian landscape, flattening trees and killing, dismembering, and burying megafaunal carcasses or body parts, along with logs, branches, and other plant material, with a matrix of redeposited loess in low-lying creek valleys. Normal depositional processes such as slope wash, creep, and mud flow would have continued within the valleys during the thousands or more years between blast events. So there we go.
All right. Very intense description of the events.
So that
Interesting stuff.
kind of fills out, I think, if you get this paper, and I believe, did we find this paper was available? I think this paper is available.
Well, the one we looked up is behind a paywall, but you can read the abstract there. I don't know which one you were
the
just
same.
reading
The
from.
same one. It's behind a paywall.
The,
I mean, we saw that the Tabor paper from 1943
Yeah, I don't
was
know
behind
which
the
one.
paper.
Yeah, maybe the one.
I
you're
didn't look
reading.
up the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can. Let's quick look it up. If people want to read it, read it themselves. And yeah, there was charts and graphs that we didn't look at. So impact. Impact related microspherals in late Pleistocene, and that would probably be enough to get you there.
Yeah. Well, if it is available, the links will probably be in the show notes for people to look it up.
Sure.
So just check the show notes for that.
All right.
RandallCarlson.com for everything else. Keep an eye out there for future tours. And
It's coming up. Yep.
you got
we
the
got-
Cumberland.
Yeah, it
Cumberland
looks like
3.
it's all available. I'm
Oh
seeing
yeah, I
it
see
here.
it. Yeah, Kyle's pulled it up.
It's
Yeah.
there, isn't it?
It is.
Excellent. So if you go to
You
Google
have to
Earth,
accept all cookies.
It's at Nature. Yeah, nature.com.
are they by any chance chocolate chip cookies? Peanut butter cookies? Listen, to guys like mine and Mike's age, if you say cookies, that's what we think of, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Absolutely. No oatmeal raisin.
Oatmeal raisin,
ooh,
chocolate chip. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those.
Just accept all cookies. You just say yes.
Yeah.
With a
Gingerbread
mailing
doesn't
address.
matter.
Gingerbread, I'll go for gingerbread, right? Yep. So you mean that's it then?
Yeah,
That's it? It's over?
we're done tonight.
Yeah,
We're done.
It's like almost 1 a.m. where you are. It's midnight here.
Oh my God.
We got to wrap it up.
We've been
We got to
recording
wrap
for
this thing
Good
up,
show.
guys. This
almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
is okay. Well, we got
Yeah,
more
we let
coming.
you go long, Randall. We let you go long, but too long.
We got
Gotta
more
stop.
coming.
Good.
Don't worry, there's more episodes coming down the pipeline in 2023.
Sign up for that newsletter.
Yep.
Yeah, sign up for the newsletter. And remember, one more reminding, Sacred Geometry International is a no-no, bad
Okay.
site, illegal, selling my stuff. And the latest on that is Bluehost shut the site down and he immediately migrated over to an offshore hosting service in Malaysia, presumably to try to get around the being held accountable for intellectual property theft. Just so people know, because he's doing strategies to optimize it, because he's seeing that as our numbers go up, his sales of my work are going up by people who don't know that that's not me over there.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Right. So
Spread the word.
RandallCarlson.com is the proper website,
that is it.
not
Yes.
Sacred Geometry International.
No.
And
In
then
spite of the
Brad's-
fact that that was originally the name
yeah,
was my name for it.
right.
That, along with a whole lot of other stuff, has been appropriated, to use a polite term.
Right.
All right, everybody. Sorry to end on that negative note, but there's a lot of cool
GeocosmicREX as
stuff
well.
coming.
Yeah.
What's that, Kyle?
GeocosmicREX is Brad's channel.
On
Yeah.
YouTube.
Legit.
Yeah.
Did
very
you
legit.
need to promo CBD?
No.
Nope.
Well, I'm still doing it on. I do it. I don't do it every day now. I do it. It's like all supplements that I do. I don't do everything over a long period of time without breaks. I take breaks on everything except for maybe vitamin C and vitamin D. I do that every day. But other things that I would do, I'll do a period, and then I'll lay off for a while. Then I'll come back to it as I feel the necessity. So it's the same way with the CBD. I mainly am right now keeping it on hand for travel to help me sleep in weird and unusual places where I'm not
Which
used
is
to.
the only kind of place we go. Yeah.
Yeah, which is exactly the only kind of place we go. So,
Next, the Alaskan muck.
That's right.
You get a nice, good
Fucking
night's
A.
sleep up
Hang
there.
on.
All right,
Alaskan
guys.
mucks, here we come.
Yeah. All right, guys.
All right.
Good night. Great
Good
show.
night, gentlemen.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, gentlemen.
Enjoyed it.
Adios.